Hey Sainers, welcome back to the Saints TV YouTube channel. On this wonderful Melbourne day, cloudy, rainy, wouldn't have it any other way. Next week, Wednesday, November 24th, I believe, NAB AFL Draft, the first round. The most stressful part of the draft for a Saints fan this year is looking and seeing if the Academy boys are going to be picked in the first round. Fingers crossed they don't. But this video, we're going to talk about some of the players that we could pick with our first pick, which is pick 9, which will eventually become pick 11. I've done a bit of research. There's a lot of talent. There is a lot of talent. So it's going to be very hard for me to even decide who I think we should get, because there's a few that I would just love to have in a team. But when you look at the needs of the club and what we all want, which is really midfield depth, that's where the bulk of the talent is. So I feel like it's going to be very hard for us to steer away from that. We'll get into it. We'll talk about it. Broken it up into mids, rucks, forwards, defenders. I've taken a note on who that player plays like so you can link it to an AFL player. That make it a bit easier to understand, because in this video, obviously, I can't show footage of the players because that's owned by the AFL. So feel free to go and Google that yourself, but I'll describe them as well as I can. So in the mids, we've got Finn Callahan, who's a mid, 189 centimeters, very smooth mover, can kick on both feet. He's that sort of player that doesn't look like he's got a lot of pace, but he gets through traffic pretty easily. He's listed as playing like Josh Kelly. He's a gun, Sandringham Dragons boy. Very much one of the players that a lot of Sainters would like us to pick, but the risk is he's likely to go probably top 5, top 6, and probably won't be there at pick 11, but if he is, definitely one that we would. The other one is Neil Erasmus. Now, just on his name alone, I would absolutely love to pick him up, but on top of that, he's listed as a mid-forward and playing like Zach Bailey. But when I watched his highlights, it reminded me eerily of Jack Steele. In terms of, he doesn't look like he's the quickest, but he gets to every contest. He looks like he's got a big tank on him. He wears the number 9, funnily enough, for, I think it was for Subiaco when he was playing. And he's one of those sort of players that you could easily put into the midfield. But when you look at sort of the midfield that we've got at the moment, is he going to give us any sort of point of difference? Is he just going to add to the contested ball winning part of our game that we're already pretty good at, when we kind of want to get a bit more on the outside? So he should be around the top 10. So if he falls outside of that, we're a chance. The flexibility with him, though, is he can go forward and impact there. Similar to Zach Bailey, but he can also move into the midfield. He's a great tackler, gets below his knees very well, gets the ball at ground level, but is also very clean with the ball in hand, outside congestion. So one to keep an eye on. And any player really that plays like Jack Steele is around our pick, you're going to consider him. The other one's Josh Gota, who's a pure mid, plays like Elliot Yeo. He's quite a big boy compared to the other mids. He's at 190 centimeters, so he's on the taller side, 79 kilos. He's a big-bodied mid, explosive athlete. He's got very clean hands and very versatile. Again, with that size, he can go forward and impact. The thing with him is he gets the ball and he just goes. He may not be the fastest player, but he's explosive off the mark, and that's something we don't really have in our midfield at the moment. Jack Steele is not explosive off the mark. Zach Jones is. Brad Crouch isn't. Luke Dunstan wasn't. Jade Gresham really isn't. Hunter Clark isn't. We don't have a lot of those types. So Gota, on his name alone again, could be the new GOAT of St Kilda. He's one that we could definitely look at as well at pick 11. The other one that I didn't really consider until yesterday when I was chatting to Marshy and Joycey is Nasiah Wangani Malira. Now, he's not really getting that much talk compared to a lot of these other guys, but when you look at his highlights, he is incredibly clean with the football. His light frame, around 187 centimeters, so he's quite tall, 71 kilos, so on the lighter side compared to these other mids. But he is likened to Lockie Whitfield, and that's purely because of his ball skills. He is incredibly good with the ball in hand, by foot, in congestion, outside. The thing with him that I noticed was he just shimmies a lot. When he gets the ball, he doesn't always pick the first option. He weighs it up and goes, okay, not you, not you, not you, you. And it might put him under pressure, but he's got a lot of composure. He's played a lot on the wing, but he's got a lot of tricks. And you'd think that, like Brad Hill, when he's got the ball, you really trust him with it, and he can open up the game. And he's quite agile as well. So I think that's one player that we haven't really talked about, and no one's really talking about for St Kilda, but he could bring a point of difference to our midfield that we don't have at the moment. So he would be one to look at. His October ranking was at pick 10, I think. So he's definitely going to be around the mark for us. And one player that could definitely improve our midfield. Now, this isn't midfield. We've got a forward, and he's played a bit of midfield, but he's mainly played as a small forward, and that's Josh Richelli. I think that's how you say his name. I watched a bit of him. He's likened to Toby Green. He's great on the lead. He's got great hands for his size. Obviously, unbelievable smarts in front of goal. The one thing for me is he's a great player, and 3 years ago, I would 100% want him in the draft. But when you've got Higgins, Butler, obviously we've kept Dean Kent, as well as Gresham coming back, I'm wondering, is there room to sacrifice your first round pick for a small forward? And then do we try and convert him into a midfielder like we're doing with Gresham, maybe with the Higgins? I feel like that might be the wrong call. I feel like Saints fans really want the best possible midfielder in this draft at the first round pick, at pick 9/pick 11. So as impressed as I was watching his highlights, I just don't know if that's the right player for the right time, right now. So if he can improve his midfield game over time, I'd definitely be looking at him. But there are other mids that are pure mids that play there full time that should be around at the same pick. So I don't know if he would be the right pick for us. Now, probably the one highlights reel that I watched that I was most impressed with, apart from one other player that we'll talk about later, was from Josh Sin. So he plays like Jack Crisp, but when I watched it, I've read a lot of comments online, he's likened to Isaac Smith. So he played heavily sort of halfback flank for the Sandringham Dragons and Vic Metro. He's a brilliant kick on both sides, left foot, right foot, cuts the opposition to pieces. But where he takes it to the next level that a lot of players don't have is that 1-2 component, where when he gets it, similar to Isaac Smith, he gets it, kicks it to a bloke, that bloke doesn't have an option downfield, so he is running around them, gets the hands, handballs off, keeps running, gets the hands back, then hits a target. And by that point, he's accumulated over 200-300 meters in one passage of play for his team. So I think the fact that he's got that half-back sort of aspect is great, because we're always playing players there, but I feel like we're pretty settled there at the moment. What I love is that he looks like he's got that endurance, that penetration, give us a bit more outside pace and skill that we don't have. Jack Billings is not the quickest. He doesn't really connect up like an Isaac Smith in his prime used to do. Brad Hill at his best would do that. He's one of the better kicks that I've seen out of this lot, out of the group that I've selected for this video. And I think that he could come in and basically play pretty quickly from round 1 onwards. He doesn't look like a guy that will be too phased with learning the ropes for AFL football. He's 186 centimeters, so he's quite tall, 82 kilos, got a bit of size about him already. From what I watched, I was most impressed with his highlights in general. Now to the defenders. There's a couple. The first one being Josh Gibcus. This is one that he is probably the most pure defender in this selection. And in the first, say 20 picks of this draft, he's really the defender. So whoever wants a defender, they're going to be looking at Josh Gibcus. We should be looking at him. Now, are we more desperate for another key back to support Dougal Howard than we are for some more gun midfielders? I don't know. But the fact that we've got the academy boys in our sights as well, in Winhager and Owens, who are pure mids, do we take the first pick and go for defense, secure that, and then go for someone like an Owens and Winhager, hopefully in the later picks, and then that covers the midfield component of the draft that we wanted? Right now, we're not really in this draft for a forward. We're in it for a midfielder, maybe a defender if he comes up. So I've got Josh Gibcus here. He plays like Jake Lever. I watched his highlights. He's a great intercept mark. Keeps it really simple. Just knows when to go and when not to go, and finds the right pockets in the back line to take an intercept mark. And his one-on-one body work is very good. He's 196 centimeters. So he's only 3 or 4 centimeters shorter than Dougal Howard, so no problem there with height. 87 kilos, and his October ranking was around pick 6, pick 7. So if he falls, that would be a great pick for us. I'd be very happy to take someone like Gibcus, because he would be... We've never really had a young defender that's gone top 10, top 20, apart from Caulfield, but he's an intercept mark. Whereas Gibcus, you could really turn into that support centre half back role that we've been so desperate to find over the last 3 or 4 years, and we just haven't. So do we ignore someone like him for another mid that we could get later in the draft with our academy boys, or do we go for him straight off the bat and really shore up that tall defender role that we just can't find internally at the moment? Now, Ruck. Mac Andrew. Now, that's a highlights reel that you can't get over. He is incredibly talented, this guy. He comes in at 200 centimeters, but at a very, very light 70 kilograms. But I would not have a problem, and I know some Sainers will, and they'll comment. I would not have a problem if we used pick 11, pick 9 on Mac Andrew. Now, I don't know if he would be available at that point because there's so much talk about him. I can't see him really slipping beyond pick 6, pick 7. But if we want to shore up our ruck stocks and not worry about getting the Paul Hunters, getting these sort of guys in the team, and planning for the future, planning for the next wave of Saints talent, you get Mac Andrew in your first round pick and you team him up with Max Heath and you tell them you two are going to be the 2 duo ruck combination for the Saints for the next 10 years. You know, on top of Rowan Marshall, who can then rest forward when those two develop, you're laughing. So he would be an investment. You would need to be patient with Mac Andrew. I feel like Saints fans want to pick up a player now that can come in and play from round 5 onwards next year. Mac Andrew won't play for another year or 2. So he needs to put on body. He's likened to Paddy Ryder in the way that his ruck work, it's very creative. He's not very much the stock standard rucks like you get now in the draft. He's very creative. He roves his ruck work like a Nick Nat Nui. He doesn't give up on the tap. He follows it through, turns into a mid, and he's very good and clean with his feet. So that would be a no-brainer for me if he's available, but I'd be very surprised if he is. But Mac Andrew, the number 1 ruck in my selection that we could possibly get if we get lucky at pick 11. And that would just, to me, it would just, like the defender position, would just shore up the rucks. We know for the next 10 years. We've got Max Heath, we've got Mac Andrew, and we've got Rowan Marshall. Paddy Ryder retires, and we're fine. So the defense and the rucks is the 2 areas that we talk about the most. And that's why I think that it wouldn't surprise me if we went for a defender or a ruck because of the priority for them. But there are so many good mids, and everyone says that a premiership is won from the midfield. And you look at Melbourne, and they've drafted through the midfield. It's hard to ignore that. So, on top of that, we've got our academy boys in Marcus Winhager, who's injured now, so I think he'll slip and we'll get him with our points. He's a mid-forward, plays very much like a Sam Powell-Pepper, a big body. I think he's probably got the biggest frame out of all of these players that I've seen. So if he hits the gym, he could turn into a real weapon for us in the midfield and maybe as a forward. And then on the opposite side, you've got Machito Owens, who's a mid. He's very good at running both ways. He's got very good endurance, and his aerial efforts are very strong. It's not that he's just very good overhead. He's gutsy. A lot of his marks and his highlights, and from what I've watched of him, he's back with the flight. No concern for his body at all, and puts his body on the line for his team. So you're always happy to have a player like that. He's a utility, can play inside, can play outside, can play wing, probably half forward pocket, can do all that sort of stuff. So it would not surprise me if he could, come in and do a very good job for us next year. So fingers crossed with our points. I'm tipping we can get him, Windhager, and then worry about the rest at a later point. So there you have it, guys. That is kind of my summary, I suppose, of the draftees and who could be around pick 9/pick 11 for the St Kilda Football Club. If I've missed anyone, feel free to comment on them. There's a lot of players that, the draft just changes every year, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. Who do you think we should pick at pick 9/11? Do you want a forward? Do you want a mid? Do you want a ruck? Do you want a defender? If you've got a player's name in mind, comment and let's create a discussion because it's this time next week. It's going to be really exciting. I'm more nervous about, whether we can get the academy boys than who we pick with our first pick. I'm pretty confident that we'll get the right player with that pick because there's so much talent here. I would not be worried with any of these players if we selected them. Rochelle is the one where I just don't think we need a forward, but he's a very talented player. So, hey, you take talent anywhere you can get it. So I'll leave it there, guys. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please hit the button. Help us reach 4,000 subs before round 1 next year. My next video will be out on Monday, Saints TV Weekly, in preparation for the draft. So enjoy the rest of your week, guys. Thank you for watching. And as always, go you mighty Sainers.